We know for the Jewish people at the time of Jesus, certainly, throughout the whole course of their relationship in the Old Testament with Yahweh, the law specifically talks about many external things that become very important in the practice of their faith. Certain foods that can be eaten, others that are not permitted. Rituals that must take place, like the purification of their hands, their pots and bowls, even their beds. The sacrifices that must be offered in the temple of certain animals at certain times. There are many external things that signify that relationship that binds God to his people. And so it must have been rather shocking for those who were around Jesus to hear him say what he says in the gospel today, "Hear me, all of you, and understand. Nothing that enters a person from the outside can defile that person, but only the things that come out from within." We know what Jesus is doing. Throughout the course of his teaching, he makes it clear over and over again, "I have not come to abolish or set aside the law, but to fulfill it, to raise it to a new level of perfection." All of these things certainly matter. The rituals, the things that we do, even today as members of the Catholic Church. There are many things that we do externally to signify our relationship that exists with God. But what Jesus is reminding us of over and over again in his teaching is that what matters most are not the things we do, but what lies inside our hearts. All of the actions and practices of the faith are meant to change our heart. That's the criticism that Jesus gives, especially to the Pharisees and Sadducees. He calls them hypocrites. They may appear to be righteous. They may do all of the things the law requires, but their hearts are far from God. And we know the sins that he points out. He mentions many of them today, the sins that can grab hold of a human heart and close it to grace. Our envy, our arrogance and pride, our unchastity, our inability to forgive those who have hurt us, our greed for the things that this world puts before us. Those are all the things that lie inside our hearts that can make us impure, unfaithful, in need of a cleansing that only God can give through his healing and forgiveness that comes from grace. All of us who want to have a relationship with God must be striving every day to do whatever we do in faith from a heart full of love, a heart that seeks, of course, to live the great commandment, to love God above all else in the world. That's not easy to do. Do we love God with everything we have, no matter what the cost? Or do we give him only a little bit of our heart because we're attached to so many things in this world? It's not easy to let go. How completely do we love God? Do we love him when it's easy, when we don't get criticized, when people don't push back? Because we can't love God if we don't love the truth. We can't claim to love Jesus if we don't follow his teaching. So many of us, at one time or another, don't really love God in the way that we're called to love. It's a work in progress. And of course, we know the other part of the great commandment, to love our neighbor And our neighbor is not the nice people that we get along with, that we agree with. Our neighbor is our enemy. Those that aren't so easy to love. Those who are marginalized, the sick, the poor. Those who have hurt us in life. Are we able to love them, to forgive them? That's the kind of heart that we're called to have, my brothers and sisters in faith, if we want to be authentic Christians. So truth be told, we all have a far way to go. None of us can stand before God and be complacent. You know, that's what G.K. Chesterton said is the greatest danger to being saved, being complacent. Everything's okay. Many people feel that way. They don't think they need to go to confession. They don't think they're really sinners. That's complacency that will prevent us from growing more deeply in spirituality and faith. Jesus is calling us to look inside. It's a lot easier to look around and judge other people, not so easy to look into our own hearts. We can appear to be religious and pious, but is everything we're doing every day for God flowing from a heart filled with love, with generosity, with compassion, with the mercy that is, in fact, God Himself? That's why we're here, to be nourished and strengthened by Jesus Himself, to grow more deeply in love. The Eucharist is the sacrament of love. And what we eat every day is what we need to become.